General Huang, we are so honored to have you here. Thank you so much for your time today.
예, 감사합니다.
Thank you for inviting me.
고맙습니다.
Well, you have many titles. You're a very busy man, but you're also the president of the NGO World Together. Now, first of all, for our viewers, maybe you can tell us about World Together and what kind of organization it is.
네, 월드투게더는
World Together is an international aid and development NGO launched in 2005 with approval from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade to help global villagers affected by poverty, disease, and conflict.
NGO입니다.
Then in that case, World Together, what countries in the world does this NGO operate in?
기본적으로 UN과
We target the world's poorest nations as classified by the UN and OECD.
케냐,
Currently, we're operating in Ethiopia, Kenya, Myanmar, Cambodia, Vietnam, East Timor, Bolivia, and Haiti.
해외 지부를 설치하거나
As for our work, we participate in projects related to education, medical relief, clean water, sanitation, regional development, and boosting incomes.
Now, I've heard that World Together has a very special project in Ethiopia, one of the countries you mentioned, and it's to honor the Ethiopian soldiers that participated in the Korean War. Could you tell us about how these soldiers are doing and what kind of support is being offered for them?
말씀하신 대로 이티오피아는 한국
Ethiopia deployed its royal guard to help us during the Korean War. It's an ally that sent over 3,000 troops and sacrificed some 120 lives. But in the 1970s, the socialists took over Ethiopia and Korean War veterans were prosecuted. Most lost their posts and their lives became extremely difficult. Ever since, their descendants have struggled to make ends meet. World Together currently provides scholarships to some 600 descendants of the Korean War veterans. And as of this year, we've been giving monthly allowances of 50,000 won to 350 war veterans.
The thing about it is there are many development agencies in Korea, but the thing about World Together, it's not just about alleviating the symptoms of poverty, but they want to try to find the root cause of the problem and solve that. Could you tell us a little bit about the business model of World Together and the vision that it has?
월드투게더의
Our ultimate goal or vision is self-reliance.
자립입니다.
To become truly independent, developing nations need to become proactive and solve their respective social problems instead of relying on foreign help. Regarding self-reliance, I'm referring to people's will and capability. I believe these two can be reached through education. Accordingly, self-reliance through education is our goal and vision.
Over the past century, half century or so, we saw many Western countries, European countries, America, they have donated an astronomical amount of money to try to eradicate poverty, but unfortunately, it's still, global poverty exists today. Now, in your opinion, what is the most important thing we need to do to get rid of this problem of poverty?
지금 말씀하신 대로 2차 대전 이후에
Since World War II, for some 60 years, economically advanced nations have spent a lot on international assistance.
대략 통계에 의하면은
The amount comes to around 2.3 trillion US dollars. Despite such high level of aid, poverty still prevails around the world. Nearly half of the world's population, or 3 billion people, subsist on less than $2 a day. 89 countries are currently worse off than they were 10 years ago. Based on research, international aid programs provided by the so-called economic powers have failed in many ways. I've been mulling over various failures, and there seems to be several reasons, mainly related to the sincerity factor. In other words, the advanced nations have used international aid as means to their own political or economic objectives.
진정성에서 찾고 있습니다.
That is to exert colonial policies to expand capitalism or markets, to pursue Orientalism and strategic policies in the post-Cold War era.
하나의 수단으로 이용하는 것입니다. 즉 어떤 식민지 정책의
Global aid should be based on local culture, history, and religion.
그리고 종교를
By assessing locals' needs and securing their participation, successes can be achieved.
무엇인지
I mentioned sincerity earlier.
참여하에 휴머니즘의 바탕을 둔
Found on sincerity and humanism as in efforts to humanizing the global society should be the goals of aid givers.
도상국에 대한 국제 개발 협력 방향이다 이렇게 생각을 합니다.
The thing about Korea is, as I'm sure, General, you're very well aware, it's the only country that went from being an aid recipient to actually becoming a donor. Now, in terms of this transformation that Korea went through, how can Korea contribute to global development?
지금 말씀하신 대로 우리나라가 이제
In 2009, South Korea joined the OECD Development Assistance Committee. We became its 24th member. In doing so, our nation went from an aid recipient to a donor. South Korea is the only nation to make this transition.
그래서 이제 대한민국의
Accordingly, many developing nations are looking to learn from our development experiences.
대한민국을 바라보고 있습니다. 그래서 최근에는 한국
And so the term Korea's Development Cooperation Model.
하고 있는 것이죠. 과거에 이제 한국이
As an aid recipient, South Korea had devoted much of its resources to three key factors:
첫째 교육, 둘째
education, skills building, and human resources training.
세 번째는 역량 개발, 인재 양성. 이런
I believe our model can be adopted by other developing countries.
개발 도상국에 적용될 수
Our government has also been conducting the knowledge sharing program to share our development experiences and know-how.
있는 이런 프로그램을 현재 추진 중에 있습니다.
Also, speaking of investing for the future, you also teach classes on global citizenship. Could you tell us about these classes?
세계 시민 교육에 대해서 좀 말씀을 드리면
Regarding our Global Citizen School, first we refer to our current 21st century as an era of globalization.
의미는 이 과거의 국가와 국가를 구분하던
In line with this, the concepts of national borders and territories no longer really exist, and the world is becoming a single marketplace.
세계화의 정의입니다. 이 세계 시민은
Our global village faces several problems, namely poverty, disease, climate change, environment, and conflict.
질병, 기후, 환경
As global citizens, we must not only acknowledge but also live up to our responsibilities and resolve these issues.
그 문제점에 대해서
Numerous advanced nations, including the United States, offer courses on global citizenship at schools. We run our Global Citizen Schools as an affiliated organization to educate military personnel and teenagers in middle schools and above.
이들이
We're essentially educating the future leaders of our nation to take action.
하는 그런 교육을 시키고 있는 것이죠.
We've talked about this. I mean, you mentioned also as well how much Korea has grown. In fact, we call it the miracle on the Han River because the economic growth was so fast and vigorous. But Korea is definitely a much more wealthy country, but what do we need to do to become an advanced country?
지금 말씀하신 것처럼 대한민국이
Without a doubt, South Korea has become an economic power. But we can't say outright that we're an advanced nation.
하기는 아직 이르다 하는 감을 갖습니다.
Economically, we are a global power, but we have yet to join the ranks of the elite.
DAC 국가 회원으로서
As mentioned, our nation became a DAC member in 2009.
해외 원조 자금은
But in official development assistance, we logged $1.3 billion last year, ranking among the lowest in proportion to gross national income.
GNI 대비 겨우 0.13%.
That's only 0.13% of our GNI, and so it may be premature to say that we are pulling our weight.
라고 하기는 좀 이르다는 겁니다.
On the non-governmental level, we've been receiving generous donations from people and conglomerates totaling 1.2 trillion won in the past year.
흔히 1조 2천억 그러면은 그렇게
The amount may seem like a lot, but given our population and economy, we should be hitting at least 10 trillion won.
한 10조 정도는 돼야 된다고 봅니다. 따라서 우리 정부 차원이나
So it's too early to say that South Korea is fulfilling its role in the international community.
다 한다고 보기는 좀 아직 이른 감이 있죠.
To join the advanced elite, we need to expand our aid programs on both governmental and non-governmental levels.
봉사 이런 활동이 더 활발하게 진행돼야 된다고 봅니다.
And for our viewers who don't understand why I'm calling you General, it's because aside from being the president of World Together, you're actually the former Army Chief of Staff as well. Quite a transition. What made you jump into this kind of work?
모든 사람들이 이제 은퇴 후에 무엇을
Everyone wonders about what to do post-retirement.
또 특히 이제 저희 같은 군인들은
Military personnel like myself, we regard being killed in action as an honor.
행복한 죽음이다 이렇게 얘기를 합니다. 그러나 이제
But it doesn't often happen, and so we plan for our post-military lives.
할 수밖에 없습니다. 제2의
I thought long and hard about what would be worthwhile and enjoyable.
행복한
By serving the country, I personally benefited a lot, so I thought about ways of paying back.
국가로부터 많은
I thought about volunteer work.
제가 2004년에 이제 마침
In 2004, I served as the first commander for our Zaytun division deployed to Iraq.
저희 자이툰 부대가
We were stationed in the Kurdish region of northern Iraq, and while there, I saw the plight of the Kurds.
제가 가서 보니까
In particular, children were suffering not only from poverty and diseases, but also the scars of war.
쿠르드의 아이들은 참으로 불쌍한
Saddam Hussein had waged campaigns to annihilate the Kurdish race.
그다음에 제2의 인생을 이런 아이들
My heart went out to those children who bore the brunt of his brutality.
제가 작년
That's when I thought about helping such young victims if an opportunity should arise.
한 3천
In March of last year, I was able to return to the Kurdish region. I found some 3,000 had been diagnosed with heart problems and scores of others suffering from congenital tumors. That's how World Together got involved. After some 40 years of military service, I'm now committed to other type of service, specifically social service.
조금 방향을 옮길 이런 제2의 인생이 되었습니다.
Then I see the connection, like you said, similar work, kind of a different approach, but how would you say your experience in Iraq affected the way that you're leading World Together today?
이라크의 경험이 지금 월드투게더에 거의
I'm applying everything I learned in Iraq in my work for World Together. The war on terror is still underway, led by the U.S.
이 대테러 전쟁에서 중요한 요소는
In such warfare, civilian military operation is of the essence. Locals' trust must be secured for effective outcomes. To this end, you need to pursue strategies that respect locals' past, culture, and religion. That's how our Zaytun division operated in Iraq. Dubbed the Zaytun-like operation, we became a model of success on the civilian operations front. I realized that the model could also be effectively adopted by the World Together among the other NGOs in our relief, development, and cooperation ventures.
So you've achieved so much more than I would say the average person. Do you have any more future goals, future dreams that you want to make come true?
I have huge dreams and high hopes. First, as the president of World Together, I will continue to work hard to fight global poverty. Our organization has been pursuing various means, but I hope to expand our reach through forging new ties with countries. As a former military man, I'm looking at countries where our troops have been or will be deployed, such as Afghanistan, Haiti, Iraq, and Sudan. In addition to eradicating poverty and diseases, I hope to help innocent victims of war, especially the children. So I want to expand our reach. And I plan to work towards increasing the numbers of our sponsors. It's also important for NGOs like us to secure a consultative status with the UN Economic and Social Council. Once it's secured, WorldTogether will live up to its name and function as true international NGO. Finally, as discussed earlier, global citizens' education is an important part of my work. I hope to continue working hard on this front as well in the hopes of nurturing South Korean teenagers as global leaders.
I think our talk today, I'm sure, inspired me as well as many of our viewers to do a little extra, especially what you said about sharing. It's easy to share when we have, a lot, but it's the true heart where you want to share even when you have a little. That's, I think, even more beautiful. Thank you so much for your time, General, today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
즐거웠습니다.